Rescue Wop. Save the dinosaurs from an island that's about to explode. What could go wrong?
Hello, welcome to Fallen Kingdom, where we return to Jurassic World 1 minute at a time. I'm Brad.
I'm Dave.
On this episode, we're discussing minute 10 of Fallen Kingdom. Before we get to that, David, once again heading over to Jurassic-Pedia.com, we got an article up here for the Dinosaur Protection Group, the marketing, the fan site, not the fan site, the site that went up in preparation for Fallen Kingdom. Yeah, the viral site, that's the one. Dinosaur Protection Group, founded by Claire Dearing, after the fall of Jurassic World. She wanted to save the animals on the island, and we get a fair bit of the DPG in this movie. We had a lot of stuff coming out online in the lead up to Fallen Kingdoms coming out. Some good little backstories there, going all the way back to Jurassic Park and just before the Lost World, with research on dinosaur numbers on both islands and that sort of thing as well.
Mm-hmm. One of the major things I think the DPG was kind of responsible for is kind of this, I wouldn't say, well, maybe I would.
False reporting, I'll say.
Irrational. Sorry, I was going to. Irrational kind of reaction from the fandom where they say, oh, so there's the introduction of the Spinosaurus and several other animals caused a ecological shift on Anisal sonar that automatically becomes everything's dead.
Yeah, and it's we've been on this train since Fallen Kingdom coming out. They're not Mazrani Global. They're not in charge of the islands. They're a animal rights group, I'd say, that are sort of spreading information that better suits their motives and goals by saying that the animals on Sauna, there's no more animals on Sauna, and that just sort of gives more focus. They have to save the animals on Nublar because of the current issue there. If the government knew there were still animals on Sauna, then who cares about Nublar? Then those ones can just go, and there won't be as many dinosaurs. We'll just keep the ones on Sauna because they've been a big enough pain in the ass for the governments and that.
They definitely have a bias, and I recall once comparing them to being like the dinosaur version of Pedia, and Jack Ewens, who created the DPG, said that's exactly right. They have a very one-sided view that they're trying to push, and they are going to deliberately ignore or even kind of exaggerate a bit the opposite view.
Mm-hmm. Yet we'll criticised. No, this is what it says. This is the de-extinction, the dead animal list from Sauna and that. Anyway.
Another perfect example is, like, for example, being that the DPG put out this poster that a lot of fans saw, and they list all these animals on it, and some in red, some in white, no explanation. And Ewens actually admitted he regretted putting this poster out there because fans kind of just, once again, did what the fans do and misinterpreted the entire poster.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's speculate and get ourselves worked into a particular thought, and yeah. But no, it's good that a lot of the stuff they reported is no longer fact, or being proven not to be fact, I should say. So,
Mm-hmm.
So of course this I don't even know if the website's still up, but I think it got hacked or something before Dominion, didn't it? Didn't something happen?
No, I think that Universal took it down before Dominion.
Okay.
But I think that Jack ended up getting them to put it back up.
Okay. Like the Dino Tracker viral site for Dominion, there was some good background stuff, backdoor stuff in the DPG website as well. So you can search it; it's out there everywhere. All the emails and that went around, just sort of adding to a bit of the Jurassic lore. Of course, it was there when we learnt that Wu did go back to Nublar in '94, isn't it? That's where
Yes.
we got all that info from. Yeah, so we sort of learnt about the whole going back, and it wasn't Operation Cleanup. That was from the Lost World viral marketing. Whatever the operation was, going back, seeing the animals were still alive, doing counts of species and all that sort of stuff, giving us sort of a definitive number of how many animals were still alive on the island at that time, and the wanting to get back on the sauna and count all the animals there, leading into the Lost World incident. So, yeah. Anything else on that?
No, I think we covered that pretty well.
We altered the course of natural history. This is a correction.
Are you suggesting the Almighty is taking matters in his own hands?
Senator, with all due respect, God's not part of the equation, no. What I mean is that in the last century, we amassed a landmark technological power, and we've consistently proven ourselves incapable of handling that power. 80 years ago, who could have predicted nuclear proliferation? But then there it was. And now we've got genetic power. So how long is it going to take for that to spread around the globe? And what's going to be done with it? It ain't going to stop with the de-extinction of the dinosaurs.
All right, Dave, ready to get in minute 10.
Yes.
All right, minute 10 of Fallen Kingdom opens with Malcolm deep in thought and ends with Claire taking an important phone call. Ending off Malcolm and Congress, he ends his dialogue here with it's not just going to stop with the de-extinction of dinosaurs. One of the congressmen says he doesn't know what Malcolm's talking about. Of course, Ian talking in his own specific language there, but Ian continues. I'm talking about cataclysmic change, changes like death. You don't know what it looks like until you're standing at the gates, which is kind of biblical, even though before he said God's got no place here, but using that terminology anyway. And that's sort of the end of the Congress stuff until we get back to the end of the film. So he wasn't used much here, but as we said last minute, it was good to see Malcolm back on screen and not just Easter egg with his book. But that's when we cut to a city street, and we learn later that it's Washington, D.C. I love this aging billboard on the side of the wall with the Triceratops and the gyrosphere, an old ad for Jurassic World that's just never been taken down. And the ad reads, Ride the Gyrosphere, a new age of adventure. I wish we had sort of more callbacks to Jurassic World in the film, but I suppose we are going back there, so as the films progress, we're sort of more and more off the islands. It would be good just to see what the whole world thinks of Jurassic World, but yeah. And then we have our reintroduction into Claire, once again in an elevator, much like she was in Jurassic World.
Of course, that ever important shot of her not wearing heels.
I remember leading into this. Colin, I don't know if it was Colin or Bryce tweeted. I think it was a collage of about 9 different boots that they were going through wardrobe, deciding what she was going to wear for the film, and just the face palm. It wasn't that big a deal. But yes, the high heels are gone for Fallen Kingdom. She's got a face in her phone here, obviously looking at something important. But as she leaves the elevator, the doors don't open all the way. A little gag here showing that there's some issues with this building. And as we learn in the novelisation, this is a World War II era building, so it's they're probably not getting all the funding that they're after, or the donations they're after. Amongst the gibberish in the background, we can hear our first appearance of Zia Rodriguez. As a matter of fact, I do have the dinosaur's best interest in mind. I'm a paleo veterinarian, which is the first time we learn that's a real thing, and the person on the phone asks if that's a real thing too, because Zia bites her lip and says, yeah, it's a real thing. And no, I haven't seen one with my own eyes. If anyone, and she starts to lose her temper, if everyone could afford ... Obviously, if everyone could afford a trip to Jurassic World, they would have. But that's when she signals to Claire to get over here and hands her the phone, because she's not good with people on the phone, as we learn in the novel.
She's a millennial. We're not good with phones. I mean, we're not talking to people with phones anyway.
Especially when they're obviously trying to smooth up to people of wealth to get some funding and donations and that. But I suppose going back, paleo veterinarian, of course, and I think we talked about this in Jurassic World with with the mosasaur trainers and all that sort of stuff, and even the vets there. You'd have to have specific fields, training, all that sort of stuff done for a lot of your different areas of the park. And of course, we know Dr. Harding from Jurassic Park would have had to be basic vet degrees, just so they obviously know their way around an animal.
Mm-hmm. Well, in the novel, Harding had been a veterinarian at the San Diego Zoo, I believe, before working at Jurassic World.
Yeah.
Jurassic Park.
But even then, we see in both the novel and the movie, even though he's a vet and been working with the animals for a little bit of time, they still don't know these animals a hell of a lot. And I'm sure there's a lot of thing on the Jurassic World or the InGen old Masrani paleo-veterinary course that is just being thrown together or added as things happen to the animals, and they learn more about them.
Well, that is a major thing in the novel as well, though, is that these animals are brought back, but they don't know anything about them. And so things like the venom in the Dilophosaurs, people often mistake that, that's just more gene splicing. No, it's not. It was in the novel. It's explained that this is something that it was the animal had, and they just couldn't. They had to take them off tour because they couldn't. Well, Hammond would refuse to have one killed so that they could figure out where the venom sacs were, so they could remove them. And so you just kind of end up getting all these various things in the novels, like the Stegosaur, in place of the sick Triceratops, has this labored breathing because it can't handle the differing oxygen levels of the modern world.
Just trying to think. Yeah, it's lost in the films a bit because we've got to sort of condense everything down. We only get the possible poisoning from the lilac berries in Jurassic Park of why it's sick, but
I think there's even a line where I want to say it's Ellie that says that they brought these animals back, but they don't know anything about them. And it kind of reminds me of the line she has in the movie where you have plants that are poisonous, but you pick them because you look good. Where they're making these decisions based entirely aesthetically, and they don't know actually anything about what they've got.
Yeah, well, it's a big thing in the novel too, with the plantings around the lodge and that the visitors, the lodge for guests, the ferns and the plants they got around the swimming pools and that are highly poisonous plants with spores and that and shouldn't be touched, and they've got them again they're planted because they look good. And
I think that Ellie internally monologues that if a child were to take a mouthful of one of those plants, I mean, kids being kids, they stick everything in their mouths. They could die.
Yeah. Yep.
And then there's Hammond that's just like looking around and like, oh, well, you're just trying to ruin my illusion. Like, no, these are like very serious problems with your park that you can't just write off. If you actually were to open this park and a toddler were to grab a handful of these plants and stick them in their mouths and go into a coma, that's a major lawsuit on your hands that doesn't even have anything to do with the problems with the dinosaurs.
Yeah, there's a lot of issues there, and you only got to look at sort of any major zoos. And again, we've brought this up before with animal attacks and that. But even just the general welfare for the animals, having to take them off display and that because there's issues, especially if you've got sort of your African mammals and that in cold climates, all that sort of stuff that they're not used to, which I think we brought up too when we were talking about the Dominion trailer, the fact we've got dinosaurs off sauna now running around the snow after a couple of years and climatising to it seems. Yeah, definitely not cold-blooded.
That actually reminds me of a thing I saw the other day where apparently a common complaint in zoos is that the animals have libidos. And so this woman was complaining on a zoo's web or Facebook page that she was getting awkward questions about the elephant's fifth leg from her toddler. And she's like, can they do something about that? I'm like, No, they are not going to give a hand job to the elephant because you want to avoid awkward questions from your kid.
I've seen Disney cartoons. They CGI all that out. Anyway, I do like here too if Zia's comments about not having the money. Here we are a few years after. If she was only just beginning to do a degree before the park failed, we don't really know too much about that. But it's sort of after 10 years too, you'd think anyone that could afford to or want to visit Jurassic World probably had already. But this is sort of proving no, there's still people that would have loved to go there but hadn't yet before the park's demise as well. But that's pretty much it for minute 10. Anything else on that before we get into some novel comparisons?
No, I think we're good.
All right. We don't get the elevator transition in the novel. We just cut from Wu on the TV to an office of the DPG with the TV on the background. Volunteers too busy racing around to watch what's on. They are busy on phones, painting protest posters with sayings like "Save the dinos" and "They were here first." That's an interesting one. Again, that's sort of treating these animals as real dinosaurs, as if this little pocket of lost world was found and not created artificially. But yeah. When we hear a chime from across the expansive room signalling the arrival of the elevator, the old pre-war doors begin to open, but then stopped halfway. Inside, Claire Doing is bracing a tray of coffees in one hand and pushes open the doors with the other. We also get Zia's introduction, but we'll have to leave that for minute 11 so we can have a look at her lost career of paleo-veterinarian. We didn't mention the fact that Claire's carrying a couple of coffees here, so she was obviously out doing a coffee run for a couple of people in the office as well. But that's minute 10. Dave, anything else before we get heavy for the week?
No, I think we're good.
All right, lovely.